Hey everyone, welcome to Insights with Benny, a space where ideas meet action, where stories inspire reflection, and perspectives challenge the status quo. Whether you're here for clarity, challenge, or quiet wisdom, this is your place. Today's episode is titled The Captured People. When trusted voices echo another's will, surrender feels like wisdom. The Captured People unveils how power wins without swords, by capturing minds through experts, stories, and subtle persuasion. As always, these are straight from the heart of Insights blog. Let's begin. The Ironhold Tale. After the death of his father, the throne passed to Lord Valor, heir of the kingdom of Ironhold. His father had united the realms of Stonevale and Grainfield into one, forging Ironhold as the strongest in the region. Yet one jewel had eluded his grasp, the city of Brightwater. Brightwater was a prize unlike any other. Its fertile fields yielded great harvests. Its pastures raised incomparable horses and livestock. Its seaport gleamed with fish and an assortment of seafood. Its walls stood thick and unyielding, and its craftsmen were admired across the kingdoms for their skills. Its people were proud of their language, history, and culture, all distinct from Ironhold. They had no desire to bow to another crown. Lord Valor longed for what his father could not have, but outright invasion of Brightwater was folly. Brightwater's weapons were sophisticated. To win by siege would bleed Ironhold dry. Lord Valor turned to General Strongarm, a warrior who was a descendant of a hero. People say he had the strength of 20 men and the wisdom of 20 more. When Lord Valor sought his counsel, he listened and then said quietly, "My lord, strength alone cannot always breach walls, but minds, when captured, will open gates on their own." He proposed a plan, and Lord Valor accepted. Far upstream, Ironhold's agents poisoned Brightwater's source of water in a way too subtle to suspect. Soon, the fish and other seafood, Brightwater's pride, culture, and lifeblood, fled from their side of the river. Nets came up empty, markets shrank, and fear took hold. Lord Valor offered help to Brightwater. "Let your fishermen cast nets in Ironhold water," he proclaimed, "and let my merchants sell your merchants' fish at half their price, so that you still have abundance and do not starve." The people, desperate, accepted. To many it seemed proof that Lord Valor was no enemy, but an ally. The trust opened doors for spies sent into Brightwater to flourish, disguised as traders, artisans, scribes, and wandering scholars. They mingled in the shops, befriended the nobles, flattered the knights, and memorized the habits of the city's rulers. They sent words back to General Strongarm. They listed the names of influential men, the noble council's leanings, and their vanities. For months, Brightwater's weakness was mapped by Strongarm and his men. When the plan was perfected, Strongarm moved. Ironhold's army advanced and quietly encircled Brightwater with disciplined silence. The soldiers positioned themselves at the gates and under the shadow, cutting off any chance of alarm. Inside Brightwater, the spies struck at once. On a night of a festival, when the city's guard was thinnest, they distracted the sentries at the gates and the wall watchers with a staged commotion at the city center. Under the cover of this confusion, the nobles were lured into wagons on the pretense of a council meeting with foreign envoys at Lord Valor's delight. The gates opened not to an invasion, but to let the wagons roll out with the noble of Brightwater. Guarded by disguised soldiers, the city's leaders were driven past their own watchmen. By dawn, all the nobles of Brightwater were at Lord Valor's palace, yet no sword was raised against them. Lord Valor received them with feasts and fine words. "I have no wish to harm you," Lord Valor said. "I only ask for your loyalty. Speak well of me, and your city will prosper under my reign. Resist, and your people will suffer without you." The nobles, disarmed by comfort and persuasion, yielded. Soon their voices changed. Sir Caldor, a fierce knight who once resisted Lord Valor's advances, declared openly to his people, "Lord Valor is no tyrant, he is a protector." Edrin, a scholar and scribe, once chronicler of Brightwater's sovereignty, wrote to the townsfolk, "To resist Lord Valor's leadership is to cling to shadows. To follow his leadership is to walk into light." Lady Mirren, a wealthy merchant, told the markets, "I have seen the generosity of Lord Valor with my own eyes. He is not here to strip us of wealth, but to multiply it." Meanwhile, in Brightwater, the story circulated that their nobles had not been kidnapped, but they honored a royal invite. The militias, once ready to fight to the death, found themselves leaderless. They lay down their arms. There was no battle, no siege, no blood spilled. They accepted Lord Valor's rule without resistance, convinced by the very voices they have always trusted. A token garrison watched the walls, but little else seemed changed. The nobles of Brightwater did not return home, but instead remained in Lord Valor's court, dressed in his colors, speaking with his wish. From there, they issued decrees and counsel to their own people. Words written in Lord Valor's ink, but spoken in familiar tones. The people trusted them, for they were the same voices that once swore to defend Brightwater's freedom. In time, the people said to themselves, "If our wisest and noblest now serve in Lord Valor's court, then surely total submission must be wisdom." So they obeyed, believing they were safe. Trade resumed and life went on, but it was a life quietly ruled by another's hand. They never saw that they had been conquered. Brightwater did not fall with the clash of swords or the roar of siege engines. It fell in silence, through trust repurposed, loyalty redirected, and truth reshaped. And so, Brightwater fell, not by the strength of arms, but by the surrender of minds. Conquering without swords. How minds become the new battleground. The Ironhold tale is a mirror of how power is won and kept in modern times. In the past, armies stormed city walls, revolutions overturned thrones, and foreign occupiers seized lands with force. But today, conquests often require no sword, no cannon, no visible army. Instead, it unfolds quietly through the capture of minds. In the story, Brightwater does not fall to siege or bloodshed. It fell because its nobles, knights, and merchants, those whom the people trusted, were captured first. Once their voices began to praise Lord Valor, the people no longer saw themselves as conquered. They surrendered without resistance, believing it was wisdom to do so. This is the power of psychological operations, strategies that shape perception until submission feels like choice. Conquest is achieved when key voices, leaders, experts, influencers, and institutions are co-opted. Once they speak with another's agenda, the people follow, often without noticing the shift. Soon economies, food systems, education, healthcare, and even cultural beliefs are guided by unseen hands. The irony is that life may look normal. Businesses operate as usual, schools run, and events continue. Yet beneath the surface, rights shrink, costs rise, and choices narrow. Like Brightwater, people may pay more for what they already have in abundance, but convinced it is the price of stability, they may even defend the very power that holds them captive. Capturing minds, not cities. The subtle steps of psychological conquest. In the Ironhold tale, Lord Valor and his father desired Brightwater not simply for its beauty, but for its wealth and resources. Yet they knew force would fail. To march armies against strong walls would raise suspicion, provoke resistance, and bleed the kingdom dry. Instead, the choice was a quieter weapon. This strategy mirrors how power is often seized. A government might impose policies that restrict rights, raise taxes, or limit choices. Corporations may reshape markets through monopolies. Global interests or globalists might introduce new financial systems. Pharmaceutical giants may push the adoption of experimental treatments as necessities. Technology firms may alter communication and culture with tools presented as harmless. The methods differ, But the pattern remains. Direct confrontation is avoided, subtle capture is preferred. It follows a familiar sequence, one that repeats across eras and contexts. It begins with a problem construct. A crisis is either manufactured or exaggerated to appear urgent and unavoidable. Narrative framing ensures people see the issue as a threat beyond their control. In the tale, Lord Valor poisoned the waters to drive away Brightwater's fish. The fishermen themselves, the local experts, could not trace the cause. Since human involvement was not obvious, the people were left to blame nature, misfortune, or even their own traditions. The true origin remained invisible and, therefore, unchallenged. The next stage is fear amplification. Anxiety, confusion, and panic are cultivated until rational debate is weakened. In Brightwater, empty nets created desperation. The fear of hunger primed the people to welcome any hand extended in help. When Lord Valor offered fish at half price, it looked like kindness. Fear made his aid feel like a rescue. Then comes authority insertion. Respected voices, nobles, scholars, experts, or influencers, are co-opted, and their status lends legitimacy to the imposed narrative. In the tale, Brightwater's leaders were lured away and persuaded with feasts and fine words. These dealings happen outside the people's view, under the guise of business agreements, negotiations, and contracts hidden from public scrutiny. When the nobles emerged, their words carried Lord Valor's will. They may have reframed the crisis with familiar reasoning, such as overfishing, the use of sophisticated tools that frighten fish away, or poor practices. Because the voices are trusted, the explanations are accepted without question. This opens the way for controlled guidance. The same figures now propose solutions, presented as the only logical or moral path, while alternatives are dismissed as foolish or dangerous. Brightwater's nobles might begin declaring that buying fish from Ironhold was the wisest and most practical choice. Merchants would praise Lord Valor's generosity in offering supplies at reduced prices. Brightwater scholars would argue that to resist would be to cling to shadows rather than embrace progress. Any suggestion of restoring Brightwater's own fishing system would be ridiculed. Any dissenting view, if spoken, would have been dismissed as ignorant, misguided, or even a conspiracy theory. In this way, dependence on Ironhold would be framed, not as weakness, but as wisdom. The process deepens with consensus engineering. Repetition across platforms, whether through media, social institutions, or social networks, creates the illusion that everyone agrees. In the tale, the voices of Brightwater's nobility, repeated and echoed, soon drowned out doubt. Once a message is widely accepted, people comply not only out of belief, but also under social pressure. To stand apart feels like isolation. At this point, submission and compliance take root. Resistance fades, not because people are convinced, but because they see no alternative. Without leaders to rally them, the people lay down arms. People submit to systems they cannot explain, policies they do not trust, and ideologies they do not share, because experts insist it is for their good. Social mechanisms enforce conformity. Dissenters are shamed, excluded, or punished. Even when most quietly disagree, a loud minority can create the illusion that compliance is universal. This false consensus convinces the majority they are alone. Finally, there is normalization and institutionalization. The new order becomes embedded in systems, culture, and everyday life. Over time, the crisis that justified it is forgotten. What began as manipulation settles into permanence. People accept restrictions as natural, lack as inevitable, and authority as unquestionable. In Brightwater, life seemed normal again. Events continued, businesses operated, but under a new crown they never chose. The power of expert voices. Why authority capture works. In the Ironhold tale, Brightwater's downfall began not with armies but with its nobles and scholars. Once their voices shifted, the people followed. The same principle explains why expert capture works so effectively. Experts, or those presented as such, carry credibility. Their titles, platforms, and endorsements give the appearance of trustworthiness. When a government, corporation, or interest group secures their support, resistance weakens. Bills are passed with little debate because top economists claim they are sound. Medical mandates gain acceptance because leading doctors assure the public they are safe. Even untested or questionable substances are justified on the grounds of experts' approval, sometimes offered to poor communities as aid. This works because of authority bias, a cognitive shortcut that leads people to overvalue expert opinions while undervaluing their own judgment. If a respected figure declares a system as effective, many will assume it must be true, even if the reasoning is flawed. People agree to a practice because the professional knows best. Communities accept burdensome taxes because world-leading bodies say it is necessary. That is why even an irrational or logically weak argument can be accepted because the presenter sounds convincing. Even when the people sense the flaws in the logic, they surrender to it simply because it is from an expert. The strategy also thrives on social proof and conformity. When people see others obeying, they assume compliance is wise. Doubt fades when it appears that everyone agrees. Just as the people of Dryden and Echoes Behind the Wall Tale accepted the illusion of endless rain because their neighbors believed it, societies yield when repeated voices normalize an idea. Finally, expert capture works because of lifelong social conditioning. From childhood, people are taught to respect authority figures and warned against disobedience. To challenge an expert feels dangerous, even shameful. Fear of punishment, fear of exclusion, and the discomfort of standing alone push people into compliance. By capturing experts, powers do not simply win arguments. They shape the frame of reality. Once trusted voices echo the outsider's voice, resistance feels not only futile, but irrational. Reflection. The fall of Brightwater should be a reminder that the strongest walls are not made of stone, but of trust. Once the voices people relied on are captured, resistance crumbles without a battle. When we hand over our judgment to experts or influencers without question, we risk surrendering our freedom of thought. Authority has its place. Wisdom and knowledge are valuable, but blind obedience can become a trap. We must learn to listen critically, to weigh information against our own reason and lived reality. If something feels illogical or harmful, even when spoken by someone with a title, it is worth pausing and asking, does this truly make sense? Is there someone who benefits if I believe this? Self-awareness is the first defense. By cultivating the courage to question and the patience to seek clarity, we protect ourselves from becoming like Brightwater, conquered not by force but by persuasion. The mind that refuses to be silenced remains the strongest gate against subtle capture. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share them on social and tag me. Please subscribe to my channels. Follow, like, share, and help spread the message. Until next time, stay reflective.